The great hall of the Valdari High Command stretched for nearly a mile. Its walls were made of black stone taken from conquered worlds. Golden lights floated in the air without any visible support. At the center of this hall stood Grand Admiral Corvith, the most decorated military leader in the Empire's long history. He was tall, even by Valdari standards. His gray skin was marked with the ritual scars of 100 victories. 4 eyes, each one a deep purple, studied the holographic display before him. The display showed a small blue planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Earth. Corvus said the word like it tasted strange on his tongue. The humans call it Earth. Around him, 20 of his most senior officers watched in silence. They had gathered here at the Emperor's command to discuss what many considered a simple matter. A routine conquest. Nothing more. Our scouts have watched these creatures for 200 of their years, continued Corvith. He waved his hand and the hologram changed. It showed primitive rockets struggling to escape the planet's gravity. They have only recently discovered how to leave their own world. Their fastest ships take months to reach their nearest neighbor planet. They fight among themselves constantly. They poison their own air and water. General Velish, Corvith's second in command, let out a sound that was the Voldari version of laughter. They sound like animals, Admiral. Why do we waste time discussing them? Because the Emperor commands it, Corvith replied simply. And because our long-range observers have noticed something troubling. The hologram changed again. This time, it showed a graph with a line that climbed sharply upward. This is human technological progress over the last 500 years. Notice anything strange? The officers leaned forward. Velesh's amusement faded from his face. The growth rate, he said quietly. It is not linear. It is exponential. Corvith nodded slowly. 500 years ago, they rode animals and fought with metal blades. 300 years ago, they discovered basic machines. 100 years ago, they learned to fly. 50 years ago, they split the atom and walked on their moon. Today, they send machines to other planets and talk to each other instantly across their entire world. They advance too quickly, said a younger officer from the back. Lieutenant Sirish was barely old enough to wear his uniform. He had been assigned to study human culture and history. If we leave them alone for another century, perhaps 2. Exactly, Corvith interrupted. Which is why the Emperor has authorized a subjugation fleet. We will take their world now, while they are still weak. Before they become a threat. The officers murmured their approval. This was the Voldari way. Find young civilizations. Crush them before they could grow. Take their resources. Add their territory to the Empire. It had worked 17 times before. How many ships? Velish asked. The Emperor has granted us 9,900 vessels. Silence fell over the hall. Then, slowly, the officers began to laugh. Not mocking laughter, but genuine amusement. 9,900? Velish could barely speak through his laughter. For a species that cannot even defend its own orbital space? Admiral, we conquered the Tellerith with fewer than 2,000 ships, and they had faster than light travel. Corvith did not laugh. His 4 eyes remained fixed on the blue planet. The Emperor wishes to make a statement. The humans will serve as an example to any other young species watching from the stars. This is what happens when you draw the attention of the Valdari Empire. The laughter died down. The officers straightened their postures. When the Emperor made a statement, they listened. We depart in 3 cycles, Corvith announced. Standard subjugation protocols. I want every ship combat ready, though I doubt we will need more than a fraction of our firepower. The humans will see our fleet and surrender. If they do not, he let the sentence hang in the air. Everyone knew what happened to species that resisted Dot as the officers filed out of the Great Hall. Young Lieutenant Sirish remained behind. He stared at the holographic Earth still spinning in the darkness. Something bothered him. Something he had read in the human historical records. These creatures had created weapons capable of destroying their entire civilization. Not once, but many times. They had bombs that could turn cities into ash. They had poisons that could kill every living thing on their world. And they had built these weapons not to fight alien invaders, but to fight each other. What kind of species created the tools of their own extinction and then simply continued living? Sirius shook his head and turned away. He was young. His superiors had centuries of experience. They knew what they were doing. The humans would surrender. They would be absorbed into the Empire like all the others. There was nothing to worry about. 3 cycles later, the fleet departed. 9,900 ships arranged in perfect formation, their silver hulls reflecting the light of the Valdari sun. Citizens gathered on every platform and viewing station to watch them go. Children pointed at the sky and dreamed of glory. Old veterans nodded with approval. Emperor Vethkan himself watched from the highest balcony of his palace. His ceremonial robes flowed in the wind as the massive warships passed overhead. He raised one hand in blessing. "Bring me their submission," he commanded, though none could hear him. "Or bring me their extinction." The fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives and vanished into the darkness between stars. Their journey would take 18 months by human counting. 18 months of travel through the empty void. They expected to find a primitive world full of frightened creatures. They expected an easy victory, a simple conquest. Another trophy for the Empire's collection. But far away, on that small blue planet, alarms were already sounding. Deep beneath a mountain in a place humans called Colorado, screens filled with data. Men and women in uniforms ran through corridors. Secure communications activated between governments that had been enemies for generations. They had detected the fleet. They had 18 months to prepare. And somewhere in the chaos, a gray-haired general named Marcus Cole looked at the data and smiled a grim smile. "So," he said quietly, "they finally came." He picked up a red phone and made a call that would change human history forever. "This is Cole. Activate Project Unity. Tell everyone. All of them. The old fights are over. We have a new enemy now." The stars had sent humanity a challenge. And humanity, for all its flaws and divisions, had never been good at backing down from a fight. The Valdari fleet moved through space like a swarm of silver fish. 9,900 ships traveling together. Their formation so perfect it could have been drawn with a ruler. Inside these ships, hundreds of thousands of Valdari soldiers lived their daily lives. They trained. They ate. They slept. They told jokes about the primitive humans they were going to conquer. Lieutenant Sirish did not tell jokes. He sat alone in his small quarters, surrounded by screens filled with human data. His assignment was simple: study the enemy. Learn their weaknesses. Prepare reports for the senior officers. But the more Sirish studied, the more uncomfortable he became. He had started with human military history, expecting to find the usual pattern. Young species typically had a few small wars, some border conflicts, nothing serious. Instead, he found something that made his blood run cold. Humans had been fighting each other since before they could write. They had wars that lasted 100 years. They had single battles where millions died in a few months. They had created weapons specifically designed to cause maximum suffering. And then they had created treaties to ban those weapons. And then they had created new weapons that were even worse. "Computer," Sirish said quietly, "display human nuclear weapons development timeline." The screen changed. Sirish watched in horror as the numbers climbed. 50 nuclear bombs. Then 500. Then 5,000. At the peak, The humans had possessed enough nuclear weapons to destroy their own world several times over, and they had kept building more. "They are insane," Sirish whispered to himself. "They are completely insane." He requested a meeting with Commander Velish the next day. The older officer listened with obvious boredom as Sirish presented his findings. "You are worried about a species that fights with chemical rockets and explosive projectiles?" Velish asked when Sirish finished. "Sir, with respect, I am worried about a species that invented nuclear weapons and then, instead of destroying themselves, built more of them as a negotiating strategy." Velish waved his hand dismissively. "Their weapons cannot hurt us. Our shields will absorb anything they can throw at us. Our armor is built to withstand impacts at significant fractions of light speed. These humans throw chunks of metal at each other and call it warfare. But sir, the report suggests they have been advancing rapidly. If they have detected us, if they are preparing, if they have detected us, they will be terrified." Velish stood up, signaling the meeting was over. "Go back to your studies, Lieutenant. When we arrive, you will see how easily primitive species crumble before Valdari might." Sirish saluted and left. But he did not stop studying. And he did not stop worrying. On Earth, no one was crumbling. The first month after detection was chaos. Old enemies screamed at each other in emergency meetings. Accusations flew back and forth. Some refused to believe the data. Others demanded immediate action. A few wanted to surrender before the aliens even arrived. General Marcus Cole ended the arguments by playing a single recording. It was a Valdari transmission their deep space arrays had intercepted. A casual conversation between two officers, discussing how many humans they would need to kill before the rest submitted. The room went quiet. "They are not coming to negotiate," Cole said. "They are not coming to make friends. They are coming to take everything we have and kill anyone who resists. We can argue about old borders and old wars, or we can survive. Choose now." They chose to survive. Project Unity had been created decades ago by a small group who believed humanity was not alone in the universe. They had made plans for this exact scenario. Now those plans activated. Factories that made cars started making weapons. Scientists who competed for prizes started sharing secrets. Soldiers who had trained to fight each other started training to fight together. Every nuclear weapon on Earth was quietly taken apart and rebuilt into something new. Dr. Elena Vasquez led a team in a secret facility in Switzerland. She was a physicist who had spent her career studying strange signals from deep space. Those signals contained information that humanity had never fully understood. Now, with 18 months and unlimited resources, her team worked to unlock their secrets. "We cannot match their technology," Elena told General Cole during a video call. Not in 18 months. Not in 18 years. But we do not need to match them. We just need to hurt them badly enough that they decide we are not worth the trouble. Cole nodded. "What do you need?" "Everything. Every resource. Every mind. And permission to try things that might not work." Done. Cities began to change. Not obviously, not in ways that would show from space. But underneath the streets, in basements and bunkers, weapons systems took shape. The world's navies modified their submarines with technology that should not have been possible. Satellites that had been decommissioned received quiet repairs. Elena's team made their first breakthrough in month 6, then another in month 8. By month 12, they had cracked the basic principles of Valdari shield technology. They could not build shields themselves, but they could build something that would break through them. "It is not elegant," Elena admitted, looking at the ugly device her team had created. "It is not sophisticated, but it will work." General Cole smiled that same grim smile he had worn since the day of detection. "Elegant is for peacetime. We just need effective. In month 15, Earth went dark. Cities that had glowed with light suddenly fell silent. Satellites shifted to new orbits. Radio transmission stopped. To anyone watching from space, it looked like humanity had given up. Like they were hiding, waiting to submit. The Voldari fleet entered sensor range in month 17. Grand Admiral Corvith reviewed the scans personally. The humans appear to be in hiding, he announced to his bridge crew. No defensive formations. No attempts at communication. They know they cannot win. Velish stood beside him, satisfaction clear on his scarred face. As I predicted, Admiral, they will surrender the moment we arrive. Perhaps, Corvus said slowly. Something felt wrong to him, though he could not identify what. Or perhaps they are simply afraid. Either way, we follow protocol. Standard subjugation formation. We show them our strength, give them one chance to submit, then we take what we want. The fleet adjusted its formation into the pattern that had terrified 17 species before. Ships spread out in precise geometric shapes designed to demonstrate overwhelming force. On Earth, in a bunker miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Cole watched the alien fleet take position. Around him, men and women from every nation on Earth worked at their stations. Russians sat next to Americans. Chinese officers coordinated with Japanese counterparts. Old hatreds had been set aside. There was only one enemy now. They are in position, an operator announced. Cole nodded slowly. Good, let them get comfortable. He looked at the display showing Earth surrounded by silver dots. Let them think they've already won. He reached for a red button that connected him to every military unit on the planet. All stations, this is Cole. Weapons free in 6 hours. Make them count. Above Earth, the Voldari waited for surrender. They had no idea they had flown into a trap designed by a species that had spent its entire existence learning how to kill. Grand Admiral Corvith stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion and looked down at Earth. The planet filled the massive view screen, blue and green and white, turning slowly beneath them. It looked peaceful. It looked helpless. Broadcast standard subjugation demands on all frequencies, Corvith ordered. Give them 1 hour to respond. The message went out. It was the same message the Voldari had sent to 17 species before. Surrender your world. Accept Voldari rule. Any resistance will result in complete destruction. 1 hour passed. No response. They are too scared to even answer, Velish said with contempt. Send the first wave. 500 ships. Show them what happens when they ignore us. Corvith nodded. It was standard protocol. Send a small force to demonstrate power. Break their spirit before committing the full fleet. 500 ships broke formation and began descending toward the planet's surface. Their targets were the largest human cities. New York, Beijing, Moscow, London, Tokyo. The plan was simple. Appear above these cities. Fire a few warning shots. Watch the humans run in terror. The ships entered the atmosphere, their shields glowing from the friction. They were beautiful in their way, silver shapes cutting through white clouds. Inside each ship, Voldari soldiers prepared for an easy mission. Then the ocean opened up. Submarines that humanity had officially retired years ago rose from the deep. They did not carry the nuclear missiles they had been designed for. They carried something new, railguns, magnetic, accelerators that could launch metal projectiles at speeds the human eye could not. Follow. The first volley hit the descending ships before anyone understood what was happening. 40 ships simply disappeared, torn apart by projectiles moving at 3% of light speed. The kinetic energy alone was enough to overcome shields designed for energy weapons. What was that? Corvith shouted. Alarm screamed across his bridge. Report. We have lost 40 ships, Admiral. The attack came from the planet's oceans. Some kind of projectile weapon we have never seen before. Before Corvith could respond, the second volley hit. Then the third. Ships that had survived the initial attack found themselves targeted by beams of light from orbit. Satellites that had appeared dead were very much alive, their laser systems painting targets for the weapons below. All ships, return to formation. Corvith ordered. Get them out of there. But the humans were not finished. As the surviving ships tried to climb back to safety, the atmosphere itself seemed to come alive with small craft. Human fighters modified beyond recognition swarmed the Voldari vessels. They were tiny compared to the alien ships. They should have been insignificant. They were not insignificant. Human pilots flew their craft with a recklessness that terrified the Voldari. They dove through defensive fire that should have killed them. They attached explosive devices to Voldari hulls and then flew away laughing on their radios. Some of them flew directly into engine ports, sacrificing themselves to take down ships 1,000 times their size. They are insane, a Voldari sensor operator whispered. They are completely insane. Of the 500 ships sent to intimidate human cities, 217 made it back to the fleet. The attack had lasted less than 1 hour. Corvith stared at the casualty reports. In his entire career, he had never lost more than a handful of ships in a subjugation operation. He had just lost 283 in 60 minutes against a species that supposedly could not even build a proper starship. Admiral Lieutenant Sirish spoke from his station. His voice was carefully controlled. I believe we may have underestimated the humans. Silence, Velish snapped. This was a surprise attack. They used tricks and traps. Now that we know what they can do, we will crush them properly. Corvith was not so sure. He watched the replay of the battle on his screen. The human weapons were primitive in some ways, yes, but they were also brutally effective. And the humans themselves fought like nothing he had ever seen. No hesitation, no fear, just cold, calculated violence delivered with terrifying efficiency. Full assault, Corvith ordered finally. All ships, standard combat formation. If they want a war, we will give them one. 9,000 ships began to move. The planet below responded. From hidden bases on every continent, missiles rose into the sky. These were not the nuclear weapons the Voldari had expected. Elena Vasquez's team had created something new. The warheads detonated in space, releasing focused beams of X-ray radiation that punched through Voldari shields. Like they were made of paper, more submarines surfaced. More satellites activated. Ground-based railguns opened fire from mountain ranges and desert bases. The sky above Earth became a storm of fire and metal and death. The Voldari fought back. Their energy weapons melted human cities. Their missiles destroyed military bases. Human casualties climbed into the millions. But for every human weapon destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. They were ready for us, Sirish realized, watching the data streams. They knew we were coming. They prepared for this. Commander Velish grabbed him by the collar. That is impossible. They did not have the technology to detect us at that range. Then explain this. Sirish gestured at the screens, showing Voldari ships exploding across Earth's orbit. Explain how a primitive species is destroying our fleet. Before Velish could respond, a human broadcast cut through every communication channel in the fleet. A human face appeared on every screen. He was older, with gray hair and hard eyes. His uniform was simple compared to Voldari ceremonial dress. My name is General Marcus Cole, the human said. I command Earth's combined defense forces. You came here expecting to find frightened primitives ready to surrender. Instead, you found us. Corvith watched in stunned silence. We have spent our entire existence fighting each other, Cole continued. We have created weapons that could destroy our own world. We have survived plagues and famines and wars that killed hundreds of millions. You are not the first enemy we have faced, and you will not be the last." The general leaned forward, his eyes seeming to look directly at Corvith. "You have one chance to leave. Turn your ships around. Go back to wherever you came from. Tell your empire that Earth is not worth the cost. Because if you stay, if you continue this attack, we will teach you what humanity is truly capable of." The broadcast ended. Velish laughed nervously. Brave words from a dying species. "Admiral, we still outnumber them dramatically. Give the order. Finish this." Corvith looked at the casualty reports again. 800 ships lost now. In just a few hours. Against a species that had never fought an interstellar war before. He thought about the human general's eyes. There had been no fear in them. No desperation. Only cold determination and something that might have been anticipation. "All ships," Corvus said slowly. "Continue the attack. Destroy everything." It was the wrong decision. But Corvus was too proud to admit that a primitive species had beaten him. Too proud to retreat. Too proud to survive. The battle for Earth had only just begun. The battle for Earth lasted 11 days. Later, human historians would call it the First Contact War. Valdari survivors simply called it the Nightmare. On the third day, Grand Admiral Corvith watched 2,000 of his ships burn. Human weapons had adapted. Every tactic the Valdari used, the humans seemed to counter within hours. Shield frequencies that worked in the morning became useless by afternoon. Attack formations that succeeded once failed completely the second time. How are they doing this? Corvith demanded. How are they learning so fast? Lieutenant Sirish had an answer, though no one wanted to hear it. Humans have fought thousands of wars against each other, he explained quietly. They have spent their entire history developing new ways to kill. Adapting to enemy tactics is not new to them. It is what they do. It is what they have always done. The orbital space around Earth became a graveyard. Destroyed ships from both sides created a field of debris that made navigation dangerous. Human pilots used this to their advantage, hiding among the wreckage and launching surprise attacks. Valdari ships that lowered their shields to rescue survivors found themselves torn apart by hidden railgun platforms. On the fifth day, Corvith tried to win through sheer destruction. If he could not defeat the human military, he would destroy their civilization instead. He ordered orbital bombardment of major population centers. It did not work the way he expected. The cities were empty. Humanity had evacuated their largest populations months before the fleet arrived. The buildings that looked like homes and offices were actually camouflaged weapons platforms. When Valdari ships descended to confirm their targets, those buildings opened fire. They turned their cities into traps, Velish reported, disbelief clear in his voice. The entire planet is a fortress. The sixth day brought a new horror. Human special forces began boarding damaged Valdari ships. The Valdari had not fought ground combat in centuries. Their wars were conducted from orbit, with energy weapons and precise strikes. Hand-to-hand fighting was something they read about in ancient history books. Humans, on the other hand, had perfected close combat over thousands of years. Valdari soldiers watched in terror as humans in simple pressure suits cut through their corridors. The humans used projectile weapons that punched through Valdari armor. They used blades and explosives. They used their own bodies as weapons, tackling Valdari soldiers twice their size and breaking their necks with practiced efficiency. One boarding team of 40 humans captured a Valdari cruiser with a crew of 3,000. They held the ship for 6 hours while human engineers stripped it of useful technology. Then they set the reactor to overload and escaped, leaving nothing but another expanding cloud of debris. By the seventh day, Dr. Vasquez's teams had cracked Valdari shield frequencies completely. The information spread across Earth's military network within minutes. Suddenly, every human weapon became twice as effective. Ships that had survived dozens of attacks found themselves vulnerable to weapons they had previously ignored. 6,000 Valdari ships were gone now. Corvith's fleet had been cut by more than half. Junior officers began to question his orders. Some demanded retreat. A few attempted to leave without permission. Corvith had them executed, but the damage to morale was done. On the 9th day, humanity revealed its final weapon. 3 ships appeared from behind Earth's moon. They were ugly things, clearly built in a hurry from whatever materials were available. Human writing on their hulls identified them as former asteroid mining vessels. Their original purpose had been to harvest resources from rocks. Floating in space. Their new purpose was much simpler. Each ship carried a mass driver designed to move asteroid fragments. Now those mass drivers pointed at the Valdari fleet, and instead of small rocks, they fired massive chunks of iron accelerated to tremendous speeds. The first volley hit the Valdari formation like the fist of an angry god. Ships did not just explode. They simply ceased to exist, torn apart by kinetic impacts that made nuclear weapons look gentle. Retreat, Corvith finally ordered. All ships retreat to safe distance. But it was too late. The humans had been waiting for this moment. As the Valdari fleet tried to scatter, human forces attacked from every direction. Submarines launched their final railgun volleys. Orbital platforms fired until their power cells burned out. Fighter pilots flew suicide missions into Valdari engine ports. Admiral Corvith died on the 11th day. A human pilot named Lieutenant Sarah Chun flew her damaged fighter directly into the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. She had been hit multiple times. Her craft was barely functional. Her wingmates had pleaded with her to eject. Her last transmission was simple: "Tell my daughter I love her." Then she hit the flagship at 400 kilometers per second. The Eternal Dominion split in half. Corvith and his entire command staff died instantly. The fleet, already broken and demoralized, fell into complete chaos. Lieutenant Sirish found himself the ranking officer on one of the few surviving ships. He had never commanded anything larger than a sensor station. Now he was responsible for what remained of the greatest invasion fleet in Valdari history, 47 ships. Out of 9,900. 47 ships still capable of faster-than-light travel. All surviving vessels, Sirish broadcast, his voice shaking. This is Lieutenant Sirish assuming emergency command. Break off all attacks. Retreat to FTL distance. We are leaving. A few officers protested. They spoke of honor and duty and not surrendering to primitives. "Look at your sensor readings," Sirish replied. "We have lost 99% of our fleet. The humans are still fighting. Their planet is still defended. We have achieved nothing except dying in large numbers." The protests stopped as the 47 survivors limped toward the edge of Earth's system. Sirish allowed himself one last look at the small blue world. It was surrounded by debris now, a ring of destroyed ships and broken dreams. Human vessels moved through the wreckage, searching for survivors to capture or resources to salvage. They were already rebuilding, already preparing for the next fight. Sirish activated his personal recording device. His hands trembled. His 4 eyes could not stop blinking. "I am recording this for the High Command," he said. "Everything I have witnessed. Everything I have learned. The Empire must know what happened here. Not our official reports, which will blame equipment failures and bad luck. The truth." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "We did not lose because of technology. We lost because we did not understand what humans truly are. They are not primitives. They are predators. They have spent their entire existence fighting for survival against each other. We thought we were bringing war to a peaceful world. Instead, we brought war to a species that has never known anything else. The FTL drive engaged. Stars stretched into lines. Earth disappeared behind them. The Empire believes it is the supreme power in this region of space, Sirish continued. The humans have proven otherwise. And they are angry now. They know we exist. They know where we came from. And they are already building ships that can reach us. He ended the recording and sat in silence. Around him, the survivors of the once mighty fleet drifted through space, carrying their shame and their terror back to a homeworld that had no idea what was coming. The first contact war was over. But Sirish knew, with cold certainty, that something far worse was just beginning. 6 months after the battle, Lieutenant Sirish stood in the Great Hall of the Valdari High Command. The same hall where Grand Admiral Corvith had once laughed about easy conquests and simple victories. The same golden lights floated in the air. The same black stone walls surrounded him. But everything had changed. Emperor Lefkin himself sat on the throne at the hall center. Around him, every senior official in the Empire had gathered. Military commanders, political leaders, scientists, scholars. All of them stared at Sirish with expressions ranging from disbelief to horror. "You are telling us," the Emperor said slowly, "that our entire invasion fleet was destroyed by a species that cannot even build faster-than-light engines." "Yes, Your Majesty." Suresh's voice was steady. He had spent 6 months preparing for this moment. Of 9,900 ships, 43 returned. Everything I have told you is documented. I have recordings, sensor data, and the testimony of every survivor. "This is impossible," growled General Morith, the new commander of the Imperial military. "No primitive species could defeat a Valdari battle fleet. You must have made errors. Your commanders must have been incompetent." Grand Admiral Corvith was the most decorated commander in our history, Sirish replied calmly. He followed standard protocols. He made reasonable decisions based on centuries of successful conquests. He simply did not understand what he was facing. The Emperor leaned forward. "Explain." Sirish gestured, and holographic displays appeared throughout the hall. They showed human history, human wars, human weapons. The humans have been fighting each other since before they developed written language, Sirish began. Their history is an unbroken record of conflict. They have had wars that lasted generations. They have had single battles where more soldiers died than exist in our entire military. The display showed images that made Valdari officers look away. Trenches filled with dead bodies. Cities reduced to ashes. Mushroom clouds rising over destroyed landscapes. They created nuclear weapons 70 years before we arrived. These weapons were capable of destroying their entire civilization. Instead of being terrified by this, they built more of them. Thousands more. They pointed these weapons at each other and used the threat of total destruction as a negotiating tool. "Madness," someone whispered. "Perhaps," Sirish agreed. "But effective madness." The humans have a concept they call mutually assured destruction. It means that if one side attacks, both sides die. They lived with this threat for decades. Every day, they woke up knowing their species could end before sunset. And they simply continued living. The Emperor's 4 eyes narrowed. "What does this have to do with our defeat?" "Everything, Your Majesty. We expected to find frightened primitives who would surrender at the sight of our fleet. Instead, we found a species that has spent its entire existence preparing for exactly the kind of war we brought them. They did not fear us. They have been training for something like us their whole lives." Sirish changed the display. Now it showed the battle itself. Valdari ships exploding. Human weapons tearing through shields. pilots flying suicide missions into enemy vessels. They adapted to our tactics within hours. They created new weapons during the battle itself. Their soldiers boarded our ships and defeated our crews in hand-to-hand combat. They turned their own cities into weapons. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation if it meant taking more of us with them. The hall was completely silent. "They are not primitives," Sirish said. "They are predators. We have conquered 17 species. All of them developed in peace. All of them reached space without ever fighting serious wars. They were builders and thinkers and explorers. The humans are something else entirely." He paused, letting his words sink in. Humans are killers. It is what they evolved to do. It is what their entire civilization is built around. We saw their crude technology and assumed they were weak. We did not understand that their technology was crude because they spent their resources on weapons instead of spaceships. The Emperor stood. The room held its breath. "What do you recommend, Lieutenant?" Sirish had thought about this question for 6 months. He had considered every option. He had run every simulation. His answer was the only one that made sense. Quarantine the Sol system. Mark it forbiddance. Pull back all observation posts. Do not contact the humans. Do not provoke them. Do not remind them that we exist. General Morris sputtered with outrage. "You want us to hide from primitives? From a species that does not even have L travel?" "They did not have FTL travel before we attacked them," Sirish corrected. "But they captured several of our ships during the battle. Our technology is in their hands now. How long do you think it will take them to figure out how it works?" The question hung in the air like poison. "I spent months studying human technological progress," Sirish continued. "They went from horse-drawn carriages to nuclear weapons in less than 200 years. From their first airplane to walking on their moon in 60 years. They learn fast. They adapt fast. They build fast." He looked directly at the Emperor. "Give them 50 years. Maybe 100. They will have FTL travel. They will have ships that match ours. And they will remember what we did to them. The millions we killed. The cities we destroyed." The Emperor sat back down slowly. For the first time in his long reign, he looked uncertain. "They will come for us," Sirish finished. "Unless we give them no reason to hide. Wait. Hope that they find other enemies to fight. Hope that they forget about us." The Great Hall remained silent for a long moment. Then the Emperor spoke. "Implement the Lieutenant's recommendations. All of them. The Sol system is now quarantine zone. Any ship that approaches within 50 light years will be destroyed. Not by us, by the automated defenses. No one will know why. No one will ask questions." He looked at Sirish with something that might have been respect. "You are promoted to commander. Your assignment is to monitor human progress from maximum safe distance. If they develop FTL travel, I want to know immediately." "Yes, Your Majesty." The meeting ended. The Voldari Empire, for the first time in its history, had decided to hide from an enemy instead of conquering it far away. On Earth, General Marcus Cole stood in the rebuilt United Nations headquarters. Representatives from every nation sat before him. The room was packed. The world was watching. "We survived," Cole began. "We lost millions of people. We lost cities. We lost things we will never get back. But we survived." Applause filled the room. Cole waited for it to stop. "The aliens will be back. Maybe not the same species. But someone will come. The universe knows about us now. We cannot hide anymore. We cannot pretend we are alone." He pointed out the window. In the sky, visible even in daylight, construction platforms orbited Earth. Human workers in spacesuits built something massive and powerful. So we prepare. We take what we learned from the enemy ships we captured. We build our own fleet. We explore our solar system. We spread out. We get stronger. The representatives nodded. Old rivalries seemed small now. Old hatreds seemed pointless. Humanity had faced extinction together. They had survived together. They would grow together. And someday, Cole said, his voice dropping to something cold and hard, we go out there. We find the ones who attacked us. And we make sure they can never threaten anyone again. The applause this time was different. Harder. More determined. More dangerous. In his secret observation post, 50 light years away, Commander Sirish picked up the transmission. His monitoring equipment was sensitive enough to catch human broadcasts. He listened to Cole's words. He watched the construction platforms in Earth's orbit. They were building warships, already, less than a year after the battle. Sirish added the observation to his report. His hands trembled as he typed the final line. The humans are coming. Recommend increasing quarantine zone to 100 light years. Recommend accelerating evacuation of nearby colony worlds. Recommend preparing for the possibility that quarantine will not be enough. He sent the report and sat back in his chair. Outside his viewport, stars that had once seemed to belong to the Valdari Empire now felt hostile and threatening. Somewhere out there, a small blue world was building ships. A wounded species was getting stronger. A sleeping predator was waking up, and the galaxy would never be the same.